you got this MS products folder, and that contains your orthomosaics and your DEM, so the output from Metashape. Okay. The other, that's the main one. They're the ones you're going to be waiting for, because you look at the size of these, like we're talking 3.5 gig for the GeoTIFF here. So that's what you're going to be waiting for when you got it syncing, and if you're downloading, it's probably going to take you about an hour for it to download, depending on your network connection. The other thing is you need GIS. That's where everything happens. That's where you save your project, the QGIS project. Survey, you need that because it has some of the survey data in there that it imports. The other thing that you need, so on the same path, so all files, 3 jobs, drones and greenfields, you need this QGIS folder synced, because within that it has the scripts that you're going to use, and it also has the icons it uses for all the symbology when it creates the layers. Okay, and that's pretty much it. So like something like this, you'd always have it synced because it's small and you just have it sitting there on your local PC. Then you go sync your individual jobs if you go down the box route. Okay, so let's go to QGIS. I think I'm on 3.1. I haven't updated mine for a long time. But what you do to create a project is you open up QGIS, you save it, and you want to save it into, I've got a one that's like a replica of that, so we can do it for a demo. You want to save it in the GIS folder. There's already one there. I'm just going to save over the top of that. So this is what you got to start with. It's important that you save this first and you save it in that location, because the scripts all run off relative paths. So it sees where you've saved your QGIS project and then finds the relevant folders relative to that. So to start the project, the first thing you do is you come in and you run a script. This isn't always here. So if I turn the processing toolbox off, now I've got to remember how you get it back. I think it's view, toolbars. Where is it? Yeah, I can't find it. I thought it was there. Project. Processing there. Under processing, you go toolbox. It's there. And it has all these menus at the top. The one you're interested in is this little Python one, which is scripts. So you click on that and you go open existing scripts. The first time you do it, you'll navigate to this folder or wherever you've saved your scripts. And it will, once you've done it once, it will remember that path, so you never have to find it again. The one that we're interested in is when you start a project is this one here, Load Detail Survey Layers Victoria. So you just double click on that. You don't worry about any of the code. You don't have to worry about that. You just got to press play. What it's going to do at this point, it's going to go and get all the data it needs. So it gets the orthomosaic, gets the DEM, gets the survey data, gets the boundaries, loads up all the layers that you need, and then does all the symbology that's required. So the things that's going to do, oh, this has already got one in it. Let's load that up again. Discard. I'm just going to delete that so it's got nothing in it. Sorry. Because I copied it straight over from the other one, which was already complete. So let's delete that. We can run it again. Okay, so what it's done, see it's loaded up the orthomosaic, the aerial map. because that's there. Behind that, this grey area that's sticking out is the DEM. You don't really need that though, so you can turn that off. It loads up boundaries. So these are the calculated boundaries for the subdivision, and it's got labels on there for the parcels. Okay, these little markers, they're survey points, so they're points that guys have actually measured in the field. And if you zoom in on them, they'll have codes associated with them. You can see this one's actually a ground control point that they've measured. But sometimes you'll see other survey points, if I can find one. That's a peg that someone's measured, nicely placed on the boundary corner. And yeah, there's these other ones. This is like check shots that they use for the drone. But you'll see a bunch of them around the site. All the zoom factors and that are set up, so you don't have to worry about that. The other thing that will be downloaded, sometimes we mark out some features in the photogrammetry in ArcGIS Metashape, particularly things like this. What this is like a top of bank. You're familiar with that? What that is? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so sometimes we mark that out in QGIS because it makes it's easy to see because you can get the point cloud and sort of rotate it and see the 3D model. And so guys will do it in the photogrammetry so that when you bring it into QGIS, you'll see that. Okay, so sometimes you'll see like the banks in there might be top and toe. You might see if there's houses on the edge of the subdivision, they might be marked out as well. But you don't really need to worry about that. It's just if you do see them, that's what it is. Now, the other thing it's done, obviously, is it's loaded up all these layers. So these are the things that need to be marked out. The way it's ordered is so that the ones at the top are the ones that you use all the time, and they're organised into different categories. So when you're marking it, you do your fences first. Okay, so they're all together. Then you do your curbs and edge of bitumen, they're all together. You do your driveways and footpaths together. All the building related stuff is here. Down to here, you got retaining walls, toes and tops of bank if you do it through here. TBMs, which is, so you do a lot of stuff for New South Wales. They call them benchmarks. Same thing. In Victoria, it's called a TBM. Temporary benchmark. Yeah. Oh, you've seen that before. Yeah. And then here are all the features, like all the services and that you'll mark out. So the reason I've got it down to about here. So the reason I've got it set up like this is that, so basically you go through and you mark your fences, then you do your curbs and bitumen, then you do your footpaths. Then you do your buildings, retaining walls, toes and tops of bank, TBMs as a separate entity, and then you go around and do all your features. Because the way we've got it set up is that what we do as part of the drone survey, if I show it, I'll go into the same one. To assist with this process is we collect what we call Street View. What Street View is basically photos looking into the lots. So you can, in QGIS, you'd find this point, wherever that happens to be, you'd find this point, and this is where you'd start, and you just follow it around. So be marking features along here. So going, oh yeah, there's a electrical pit here, there's some NBN pits here, there's a grate here and a junction pit here. You just go around, you follow it around, marking everything that way. Because the way we set up the flights is so it's like you're walking around the subdivision. I always say with this is a survey with your mouse rather than with your total station. So the photos are your eyes. So you're just going around marking things as you see them. Then it comes down the other side. Sometimes on a bare subdivision, it's a bit tricky to figure out exactly where the photos are. But once you get the hang of it, you sort of get an idea. And then you just follow these around, marking them. And wherever the photos go, that's where you mark next. Okay? Particularly when you're marking the features at the fronts. When you're doing the footpaths and the curbs, you don't really need to because that's pretty obvious what they are. But when you're doing the services and all those other features, then it makes sense to do it with the photos. Okay. Yeah. Well, they're pretty low. Like this is flying at about, I think they're 15 meters, so they're quite low. And so the resolution on that would be, I don't know, it's got to be, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like you look at that, there's plenty of detail there. You can even read the NBN on the top of the pit there. So, yeah. Okay. So just to show you how we mark this, so the way this is used is one, obviously it shows the features, right? So we've got another piece of software that we've wrote called Green Drones. They'll suck in all this data and it'll break up the data into individual lots for survey plans. Okay. It's going to take all that feature data and draw them into a plan, the same as what you normally would. The other reason you mark things out on this is it's used to add levels to the data. So if you look at the DEM, zoom, like the resolution on this is, let's make this so it's easier to see stuff. Probably bring that back into, say, 29. You can start to see the amount of detail you can see. You can see tire tracks and stuff in the DEM because the resolution on it's like 10 mil. So we can see everything. But for a survey, we don't want contours that represent these tire tracks because it just looks too messy and it's too much for the build to interpret. And so we do quite a bit of processing on this in that it will basically smooth out a lot of that stuff. Okay. And the other, but when you do that, so let's say we take this DEM here, we take it from being 10 mil and we go, we're going to degrade that resolution to 1 meter. Okay. Great. Smooths out all those tire tracks and rocks and everything else we can see. And you see that underlying topography. The issue with doing that is that when you're talking about curbs, when you're talking about tops and toes of banks, retaining walls, all these things where you've got a very sharp change in elevation, you lose it all when you go to 1 meter, okay? Because it basically just smooths over the top of it. So what we need to do is we need to mark out those features. We need to tell the software that actually at this point here, we want to take the raw data from this 10 mil resolution data set. So basically what it's going to do is like, we're going to mark out a curb here. Maybe we mark out the top of bank here. And it's going to say, okay, these points, let's take this data that you're looking at here. And we're going to cut out a certain amount of data on either side. And outside that, we'll use the sort of smooth data. Inside that, we're going to use the raw data. What we get then is we get the best of both worlds. We get the nice smooth data over the pads. We don't see tire tracks and stuff like that. But we also get the sharp detail that we need around a retaining wall or a curb or something like that. Okay, so what we're trying to do here is, one, mark out the feature and tell the software where we want to get levels. Okay, and so for things like curbs and that, we want to mark them out along the top of the curb and then the invert of the curb. Okay, and by doing that, it tells the software that at these points we want that raw data, and we're going to get a nice sharp change in our contours. Okay, so when we're marking it, we use the orthomosaic. We don't use DEM, obviously. And we start at the top. So we've got few different types of fences. We've got a paling fence, which is this one here, and you can figure this out from the photos. If we look at those photos, find one. It's going to be the last one I find, isn't it? There we go. You can see there, it's a paling fence, right? Sometimes you've got a metal fence, sometimes you've got other types of fence. The only one we mark differently is if it's a timber fence or a paling fence, as we call it. Okay. Where we mark things out, you don't need to mark all the way down here because it's not part of our subdivision. You only need to mark within about 10 metres of the last lot. So, for example, on this fence here, you probably only mark down to about here. Okay, we don't want to mark all the way down here because it's not going to get used. Same with the curbs. You're only going to mark to about here and to about here, probably here. So where that last lot is, that's basically where we're going to go to. Now, I've got a pretty specific process labelled in QGIS in the manual about how we mark things out. Like you should go into this zoom level and you should click your keyboard so many times. That's a guide. It doesn't have to be exactly what's there. So I think, I can't remember what I've got in the manual, maybe it's 1 to 25 or something like that as the scale. So basically just get it something close to that, something like that. Sorry, I should show you how to turn that stuff on. So to mark individual layers, what you do is you click on it in this list over here, click on the pencil to toggle editing, and then you need to click on the add line feature. If it's a point, it's going to say add point feature. So it depends on what kind of thing you're marking, whether it's a point or a line. In this case, it's a line. So I'm going to start one of these little starters, fence starters, down from where our subdivision starts. So I'd do it like this. I just mark in the middle there, and once my zoom is around about where I want it, then I just click 3 or 4. It doesn't matter. You just want it to be consistent. Okay, so by just hitting the up arrow, 1, 2, 3. Right, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, and so on. Again, doesn't have to be 3, could be 4. Just something that's consistent, because we want the markings to be close to evenly spaced. Like if you were doing this survey in the field, your points would be pretty evenly spaced. So we want to try and replicate that. Obviously get the turns anywhere where it changes direction. We're going past the end. No. Still got a way to go. Well, since I've done this. Okay, then you just right click. When you right click, it will bring up this little dialog. Some features you'll have an attribute that you can add, like for 99% of the features you're going to mark, it just has this little description attribute. You can put something against it if you want. Most of the time you don't need to. The only ones that do have attributes that you have to add are if you do trees. If you do trees, you need to put in the height, diameter, and spread. But it prompts you to do that. Okay. With these fences, you then go and do the little starters. What these are is basically they're starters for the builder. So when someone builds on this lot, they continue this fence. So you just go through and mark each one of those. Don't worry if they don't intersect perfectly. The software will actually join them up afterwards. So you go through and do each one of those. The other place that sometimes you have a paling fence will be around the substation. Yeah, so you just go around and mark that one as well. A good thing to do when you're doing this is you be systematic. So basically, and the fences are a little bit different because they can be in random spots, but I try to work my way around. So once I get to the point where I do the curbs, I'd do something like I'd go around here, around there, back around here, and then like so. And the reason I do that is then there's less chance you're going to miss something, and it's more efficient. Like if you're marking here and then you mark over here and then you mark down here, you end up missing things, and it's slower because you're thinking about where you're up to. Okay, so that's that done. So once you've finished, you just click on the pencil again to toggle the editing, and that will you're prompted to save it. Okay, so you save it. Now the data's saved. Okay, until you do that, any data that you've marked isn't actually saved. So if you were to leave everything open and didn't toggle the editing on it, yes, you've marked it all. But if then you shut down QGIS, you lose everything. It's a really, really annoying and dangerous issue, and people have been caught out by it. So the way that I do it, and I encourage the other guys to do it, is you mark something, you turn it off, and then you always got it. The worst you can do is you can lose one thing that you've done rather than everything. Okay, so the next thing I do is the curbs. Now, the way I do curbs is like it potentially can take a long time. And when we first did it, it did, is that we'd marked everything. We'd mark the back of curb, inverted curb, top of curb. Okay, you'd mark all those, and you'd mark them all individually. But what we found is there's actually a feature in here that you can copy and do like a parallel line, and it will mark the other one. So we go through and we mark the edge of bitumen first, because that's always very clearly defined. Sometimes you get a bit of junk in the gutters, and so the invert can be difficult to define. So what we do is we do edge of bitumen, and then you'll copy it into the invert and then onto the top of the curb. So we'll start edge of bitumen. Oh yeah, something that's different to New South Wales, we don't do the back of curbs. It just has to be somewhere on the top there. So we just call it top of curb, and then we try and get it somewhere in the middle. That way we don't have to be so precise on it. So we don't actually do back of curb. We do invert, top of curb, and edge of bitumen. But in New South Wales, all they do is the back of curb. They don't do the others. So that's one difference as well. Now, something about the curbs, as I said, these are going to add levels, okay? And because you're going to use a parallel line to define them, so let me show you what I mean. So I'm just going to mark this here real quick. Don't worry about exactly what I'm doing, but I just want to show you something. Okay, so I've marked that little bit there. I'm now going to open these. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to grab this little thing up here. So select features. I've got to be highlighted on the layer that I'm selecting the feature from. Click on the line, it highlights it yellow. And I'm going to Control C for copy. I click on the top of curb. Copies an instance of that into the top of curb. And I'll do the same for the inverted curb. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and use this feature here called offset curve. And what that's going to do is you're going to select on it. So it's the layer that you're in. So I'm doing the inverted curve right now. So I'm going to grab it, drag it, and put it somewhere pretty close. Now, when you're doing this, it doesn't matter if you're right on or not, because they don't really care about the position. They just want to know what the size of the gutter is. And so I tend to move it out a little bit, that way making sure that it's always at the bottom rather than potentially halfway up the invert. Okay, put that there. Top of curb the same. Grab it, and it's going to put it in the middle of the curb. Right, now let me get up there, turn that off. Now what I want to show you is select on top of curb. This tool here, you can edit vertexes. So if there's a point, I can move it around, or you can add some in. You see at the end of it, there's a little plus there. If I click that, I can add a point on the end, so on. But the reason I've clicked it is I want to show you, see, we mark that point there. When it does the parallel offset, it puts points in at the same spot. That's good, because what we can do is when we mark this edge of bitumen, we mark at the top and the bottom of the crossover so that you can get levels at those points as well. Okay, so what the software that interprets all this is going to do is where each of these points is, that's going to be a level that it adds to the contour model. Okay, so we're trying to mark the top and the bottom there, so we pick up this little drop here. Okay, so let me delete that, and I'm going to delete that and start again. I'll show you how we do this. Same thing again, we only need to do about 10 meters the other side, so I'd probably start here with the edge of bitumen. So same again, get your zoom to about 125, 120, somewhere in there, and just start marking it. So 1, 2, 3. The reason we've picked that approximate zoom is that what it means is that it sort of coincides with 2 or 3 points per lot based on a normal lot size. So each time you put one in, that's a level for your model, and it's going to end up with 2 or 3 in each of the lots. Okay, we've got a driveway here, so we're marking the top, the bottom. Doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be roundabout in the same spot. Normally they got these little cracks in the concrete, which makes it easier to find. Same here again on the footpath crossover. So we just go around marking the whole thing, because the idea is you do it as one stream. So obviously it looks like it's curving here, so put in an extra few points. Is it? Yeah, it is. So if it's curving, you obviously put in more, because then it captures the shape of the curve. Sorry. This is when it gets annoying, is when our pilot goes and parks on the edge of the on the edge of the road, and then we can't see it. Okay, so we mark that there, right click. Okay, so that's put it in now. Now what we do is we do the offset for it. So again, click on the identify feature or select feature tool, click on it, Control C, click on top of curb, copy, click on invert of curb, copy. Now there's an instance of that in each of these layers. Starting with the top of curb. Actually, I think this is the thing that might have changed between versions. I think this offset curve is maybe in a different menu now. I think there's might be, I can't remember what it is. Maybe there's like an edit and there's another folder within here. I'll find out anyway before you do it. So I'm going to click on that. You see it gives you that little cross, and you can see it moving around. Zoom in, just get it in round about the top middle. Don't try and get it on the edge. Don't try and get it at the back, just somewhere in the middle. Okay. And then same with the edge of bitumen. Oh, sorry, not the edge of bitumen, the inverted curb. Like I said, just a little bit out, doesn't have to get right in there. It's actually better to be a little bit out. Yeah. So that's that section done. You then go around and do each of these. Okay, so like I said, be systematic. Do this one, do this one, do this one, and this one. Important thing is don't try and mark it where something is, because if you go and try and put a mark here, for example, and then you put that offset curb in, it's going to sit on here, and it's actually on top of the excavator there. And so the level that it extracts from there is going to be wrong. And what you'll see in your contour model is you'll see this step up there, which is an artifact. It's not right. So what you're doing is, if you had to mark a point here, you probably wouldn't. You'd probably just mark here and here. But if you really had to, you'd do it here, but definitely not in here somewhere, because you're going to be marking on top of that. The same as, let's see if I can find an example here. Might be some over here. No, it's all pretty clean. This is a nice clean sub. Oh yeah, maybe there. Yeah, so the same as if you've got some dirt, or sometimes you might have a little bit of grass growing over the edge of the curb. I wouldn't mark a edge of bitumen here, because when you put the offset in, it's going to sit on top of there and the level's going to be wrong. So you mark here instead. Okay, so that when it offsets and it puts in the top of curb, it's going to be sitting here. Does that make sense? Because yeah, so I guess that from an understanding level, remember that where these points go in, that's the level that it's going to use in the contours. Okay, so if you were to put in a point here, which then you offset the curb so it sits on top, then that level's going to be wrong. It's not going to be at the top of curb, it's going to be the top of that dirt. So that's the those. Yep. You're right. That's all right. Okay. Where are we up to? So, yep, let's say we've done all the curbs now. We've gone through and done each one of these. Then you're going to do the concrete driveways and do the crossovers. The way we do those is basically mark it from the edge of the curb to the footpath, like so. We only do it on one side because we're going to do the footpath down the other side, so we will draw that in. You just sort of go around marking those on each of the crossovers. don't mark this because that's a footpath. And that's all there is to that one. Say again. Yes, that's right. Yeah, you got concrete driveway and concrete path. Concrete path is the footpath. Okay, so you do them separately. Yep. We asked them, like the draftees, whether we could, or not the draftees, the survey team, whether we could just do it all in one go, and they're like, no, we need it in separate layers. It's pretty obvious what that is, but anyway, that's how they want it. So you would just same thing, systematic, go around there, around there, around there, around there, around there. That would do all the crossovers, and then the footpaths are sort of the same as the curbs. So you just get your zoom close to that 1 to 25, somewhere around there, and you mark them in. You do one side, obviously. So 3 clicks, 4 clicks, whatever you decide to choose. You notice I'm not being super cautious on where it is. I actually prefer to mark it in a little bit because you haven't got builders measuring the width of the footpath. They just want to know the footpath's there, approximately where it is relative to the boundaries. And so I just find it's easier if we mark just like this is only probably 20 mil in from the edge of the footpath. So it's probably fine. It just means it's quicker as well. Like you don't spend hours there trying to get right on the edge. You just get it close. Again, I'm not marking on the dirt in where it's going around this corner. I'm putting in a few extra points. I don't bother trying to put that in. No one cares. So I just do the edge. So sometimes, not always. Like sometimes the concreter might get it in the wrong spot, and sometimes you'll see it inside the boundaries. You can't see it here, but sometimes you'll see the surveyor, rather than putting a peg in, they put a drill hole in the footpath to mark the boundary corner. So make it as much best you can, make it one continuous string. That's the other reason for marking it a little bit in, because sometimes you get this stuff coming over the edge, like the dirt and grass and that. If you mark it a little bit in, then it sort of avoids being on top of that and having sort of crooked lines because you're trying to avoid it. So when I get to the curb on a section like this, I end it and I'll start a new one on the other side. Say again. Any points? Yeah, it doesn't really matter. Yeah, you can put in, yeah. So like I said, I try to keep them even. I put more in, obviously you got to pick up the changes in direction. Okay, so you got to get one there and one there. This is curving a little bit, so I put a few extras in. But if it's a straight line, I go on that same idea that I get the zoom to, or the scale to 1 to 20, 1 to 25, somewhere around there. And then I just do a constant distance. And by doing that, I mean I'm going 1, 2, 3 on the keyboard. This is a curve here, so I'm just going to put a couple extra points in. And then once it straightens up, which I think it Probably does the other side of this. Okay, so now that it's straight, I'll go 1, 2, 3. Put it in 1, 2, 3. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Like, I'm not putting it at the same spot in the screen. If it's a meter, 2 meters either way, it doesn't matter. It's like you say, it's more about showing the shape, trying to get them spaced evenly where you can, because then it'll put even levels in. But yeah, it's not a big deal if you can't. If there's grass in the road or dirt or something like that, you can just skip over it. Won't finish about the same spot. There you go. So you do the same for each of them. So I'll go and do this footpath, that footpath, that footpath, and then that one, and then you've done the footpaths. Don't worry about the buildings. I'm not going to get you guys to do the buildings at this stage. I'm going to leave that with Jason. I just want to keep it simple to start. Once you guys have the hanging, yeah, like this is going to help us heaps anyway. Like because we're probably talking 2 to 3 hours worth of work doing this. Yeah. So once you get the hang of it, it's quicker. Oh, really? So I would probably knock this over in an hour and a half. Once you get the hang of it and you get into the routine of it, it's really quick. The key to it is being systematic. Okay, so that's what I mean about you work your way down the list of features. You do the ones that are meant to be together. So you do the curbs together, you do the footpaths together, and then when we get the features, you do those together. If you do it that way, it's quick. And yeah, if you try and do a little bit from here, scroll down, start doing some stuff down here, you're going to miss stuff, and it's going to take you way longer. Okay, so that's a real key thing, is that it needs to be systematic. It's less painful too for the person who's doing it if they follow a systematic path. Okay, so yeah, I would think that I'd knock this over in an hour and a half. If I was just sat down, no distractions, I could do this in an hour and a half. I don't expect you guys to do that, especially not initially. I'd expect that after a couple of months of doing this, you'd be down to maybe 2 to 3 hours, 2.5, 3 hours. Yeah. Like I said, don't expect it straight away. Like this will take you 4 or 5 hours, maybe longer first time. But as time goes on and you become more efficient and you know the system, yeah, you can do it really quick. But Jason is faster than me. He'd probably do this in an hour. Maybe not an hour, but yeah, he's very quick on it. But he's been doing it. Yeah, but he's been doing it for a year now, and that's his main job. So he's become very efficient at it. Because really, the thing about this is there's not a lot there. Like it's curbs, footpaths, some fences sometimes, and then your features. So, and it's an open subdivision, right? It's not like there's things in the road and it's hard to find things. So it can be pretty quick. All right. So once you've done that, don't worry about the retaining walls or the banks. I'm going to get Jason to continue doing them for the moment. So you'll skip over those, and then you'll come to the TBMs. We'll still do those. The way the TBMs work is you need one on every lot. That doesn't mean you mark one every lot. It just means that between each lot, there needs to be one. So if I mark one here, that one serves as a TBM for this lot and this lot. Okay? So I don't have to put one there. And it works well because normally there's one of these electrical pits every second lot. Okay? Not always, but most of the time. If you get stuck, sometimes they go and put these piles of dirt on top of the electrical pit and you can't see them. What you do then is you use another feature. You can use, best to use like at top of a pit. So sometimes I'll just put it on the junction pit. What's better, I reckon, is you put it on the corner of the driveway crossover and the footpath. But ideally, you're putting them on these TBMs, on these electrical pits. So you go around, just make sure that everyone has one. So this one's by itself, so we stick it here. Try and get it in the middle the best you can. And then work your way around on the others. Really important. This is almost the most important part of the whole survey, is getting these in place, because if you don't have a TBM, there's no point in doing a feature and contour survey, because that's what the builder wants. They want their reference level. So again, you be systematic, work your way around the subdivision. There's less chance of missing them then. Once you finish, just zoom out and double check. Have I got one for every lot? So, yep, this one's there, that's there, that's there, that's got those, and this one's got that one. And obviously you do the rest of them as well. Okay. After you do that, you do the features. And the way I do these is I try to do them all in one go, because this is how I used to survey, is I'd have a code library on my controller, and I'd basically put in all these codes as like a quick code. You can have them just sitting as icons, and you walk around the front of the lots, put it on the feature, click, put it on the feature, click. And so we're trying to do the same idea. So what we do is you open all of them. So they're all together. I'll explain what each of them is as we go through. That one. And that's it. Okay. So then they're open. And when you click on it, then you can just mark it. So if I'm on this, if I just then, let's say I'm down, what happened there? The zoom's gone. Oh, there we go. So if I'm here and I go, oh yeah, there's a sewer manhole there. Find the sewer manhole code, click on it, cool. Move on to the next one. Okay, there's a junction pit here. That's these pits. Okay, they're always next to, well, not always, but they're always near the curbs, and they always have this green or will be a concrete lid. They're a junction pit. Mark 3 sides. Don't have to mark all 4. I've got a graded pit next to it. You start to see the advantage of having all these open at the same time, because then as I go around, as soon as I see something, electrical pit, we mark the where we put a TBM, we also mark it as an electrical pit. That way, when the draftees see it, they know that it's an electrical pit. Okay, got an NBN pit. Comms pit, it's called, sorry. Communication. We've got these. You need to mark them as well. They're, is it that one? That one. They're stormwater pipes. And this is where the photos come in handy, because sometimes they're hard to see. You can see them at the front here. Okay. So if I was doing this properly, I'll be working through the photos as well. I can't even tell you where that is. Where there's the toilet on there. So that's actually up there. There's that. So that photo is taking a photo of here somewhere. So let me go back to the start on those photos. That's not very helpful, is it? Okay, there we go. There's something to start with. We've got the weird place for him to start the photos. I've started there, gone down there. So that's basically what you do though. So was our first photo. So that's the first photo. You find that point there. So it was coming down here. There was a light pole somewhere here. There. So that's where he started. Okay. So you'd start there. So it's good to have two screens. So you can have this on one screen. Yeah. And then you have this on the other screen. So you're basically walking along, marking it. Okay. So I'd be marking as I see. So I look at the photo. I go, okay, that's that light pole there. I got an NBN pit. I've got a junction pit. I've got a graded pit. And then you'd move along. So while you're here, you get the light pole. We just mark approximately the base. Comms pit. Graded pit. Don't worry about these being perfectly rectangular. The software actually finds the best fit of all the points that you put in and makes a perfect rectangle out of it. So the next photo, move along a bit. So we've got a electrical pit, an NBN pit. So you can see what I mean. It becomes pretty efficient over time. Once you get the hang of what the codes are and using the photos, you can be really efficient with this. What makes it hard is when people do the photos and they jump around like this. So you can see what's happened there. He's coming down here, taking photos that way, and then he spun around and going up that way. So that's the other side there. That's over here now. Okay. But to make it easier on yourself, it's best just to follow the photos. So you'd mark through here, jump over here, start marking around here. One feature I want to show you, it's sort of hard to find sometimes, are these. They're stormwater outlets. They're not always obvious in the photos. And obviously they're not always clear in the orthomosaic. The way you can tell them is there's always like this dirt outflow that sits next to them. So you can see there's another one there. There's that dirt that's coming out. And you can identify them in the photos because you can see them as well. So you can see that there. And so they're this stormwater outlet. You just mark on the, just in front of it. Okay. So we can find another one. Not every subdivision has them, but you just got to be aware to keep an eye out for them when you're looking at your photos. There's another one there. We just do the best we can with them. If you can see these outflows there, you just mark them. Okay. In terms of what features need to be, how they're marked, they're defined in the layers. So you can see this is a line. That means you've got to do the perimeter of it. Okay, so there's junction pits and these graded pits. You got to do the perimeters. If it's a point with an icon, that means that you only need to do a point. Okay, so something like a NBN pit or a comms pit, you can see it's just a point. If I turn that off, you can see it's an icon. So that means it's just a point. You don't have to mark the perimeter. You just mark the point, the center of it. If you got a double one like this, mark it twice, center of both of them. That way, you can see it's a double pit. What else? there's the pipe. So we mark the pipes, which I already told you about. So you can see them in the photos. There's one there that we marked before. You also get them at the back of the lots. So after you've sort of walked around doing all this, following the photos, like all the features along the road frontages, you then jump into the middle and you mark everything you can see at the backs. So, and this is where it becomes probably even more important to use the photos, because it's easier to see what's there. And sometimes like this, is this actually a pipe or a pit, or is it actually is it just some rubbish? And so when you look at the photo, you have a look, oh, actually it is. There's a pit there. There's a pipe there, okay? What you got here, you got 5 different things here. You got a junction pit. That's pretty obvious. You've got a stormwater pipe. You can tell by the diameter. And you've got a sewer pipe. And you can tell, again, by it being a narrower diameter. You've got a sewer inspection opening. That's these little ones here. So you can see the difference between a sewer inspection opening, which is smaller, compared to the sewer manhole, which is a bigger opening. Okay. The wider diameter, I don't even, if I was in New South Wales, I'd say that that's a sewer. Because normally the sewer's got a wider diameter in New South Wales, but in Victoria, I don't know what that is. What I would do is that I would just mark that as a pipe. So what we do, whilst we've got 3 different pipes there, we mark them all as the same thing. We mark them as this stormwater pipe, no invert. So we go bang, bang, bang. Okay, that's how we mark it. We don't worry about distinguishing between them. We used to, but we got too much confusion because some people knew the diameters of things, some people don't. Like when we're talking about field surveyors. So we just went, all right, we're just going to mark them all as the same thing. It's not something that a builder should rely on. They should just know that there's a pipe there and that they should investigate further. Sewer inspection opening, and then junction pit. Okay. And then using your photos, like I said, these ones aren't the best, but you can see from here what's there. There's another pipe there. That's just a stake marking where the boundary peg is. Another junction pit. Another pipe there. Another pipe. 2 pipes there. 1, 2, and junction pit. And so you use your photos just to go along and mark those. Find the things you need to. What was that? Oh, it's further that way. So, yeah, there it is there. Okay. Use your shadows. Sometimes that's a good way to pick up that there's something there, because you can see that shadow sticking out in the bottom of it. Yeah. And so that's pretty much it in terms of what I'm going to ask of you guys, is to mark footpaths, driveways, fences, curbs, the services and features along the front of the lots and along the back of the lots, like these ones here. And then that's it. Okay. I'm going to leave the marking of pegs and doing the houses and doing some of the extra filtering that we do. I'm going to leave that with Jason for the moment. Once you guys get a bit more experience, then maybe we can think about you taking on a bit more. But let's work with this first and see how we go. I know that's a lot of information and there's a lot to take in. So don't worry about it too much. Like the main idea here was to introduce you to the system, talk about some of the things that we do. What we can do is next week, we'll do another training session and you can do it and I'll talk you through it. Yeah. So you'll load up the project and everything like that, and then I will talk you through it. Let's say what you should do at each step. Okay. And then, mate, depending. Yeah, yeah, definitely. Like, there's no way I expect from this that you're ready to go now. There's a lot of information there. Yeah. So, yeah. When you, what's your schedule like next week? Wednesday. Okay. Wednesday. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So I'll have a look at my schedule because mine's always variable. But what we can do is work out. Maybe we can do Wednesday and Thursday. We'll do one on Wednesday, do another one on Thursday. That way, it's fresh in your mind, and you can um, you'll be able to be more independent on Thursday after doing it on Wednesday. Again, I'll look over your shoulder and help you. And then if we can maybe do another couple the next week, we should get close to being at a point where you can start doing them yourself or start training your team to do them. Yeah, yeah, cool. Yeah, yeah. We'll take our time with it because there is a lot of information in it. I think, like, you're already doing them for prime surveys. I don't think there's too much difference really to what you're already doing. Maybe it's a little bit more of we've got our own system, but is it? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Is it a similar idea in terms that you just yeah. Yeah, yeah. So I think you'll get up to speed pretty quickly once you understand how to mark things, what the layers are, all that sort of stuff. I imagine you'll get up to speed pretty quickly. Um, yeah, yeah, okay, yeah, yeah. Oh, I always find it's hard as well just watching somebody else do it because it's sort of hard to know what to take in, and so until you do it yourself, yeah, that's the point. Cool. All right. Thanks for catching up with us, Din. Looking forward to working with you on this. Yep. We'll do. See you, mate. Bye.